Happy Friday, everyone. It is actually Thursday night, but I am booked really solid tomorrow. So instead of a day of, I'm just going to pre-record so I don't have to feel rushed talking about triggers once again. It's the subject that just doesn't seem to go away. And I got a couple personal messages again, and we've talked about the trigger and the trigger plan and what happens if that somebody's purposely triggering you and how to kind of separate yourself from toxic people. We've gone through a lot of different ways to approach triggers, but I wanted to talk about when you really can't disengage with somebody that triggers you, and you've tried your trigger plan, but it just doesn't work. So it's either a coworker that you have to still work with them, or family. A lot of times we have family that triggers us, and it's somebody that just can't hear us. Maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's just, something that's going on, and you can't get away from the person that's triggering you. Sometimes that person is somebody you care about. Sometimes that person might be a little bit of a negative part of your life, but they're in your life. So what do you do? And so a couple of the personal messages were like, this thing is going to keep coming back. I've tried the plan. What do I do next? And so I love to talk about, we previously talked about role design and career and the way that we want to show up in the world and what roles we take on. But if you're in a situation where you've tried everything to get rid of a trigger in your life and you're still kind of stuck with that person, think about the roles that you're playing in the conversation. So if your mom is the one triggering you because maybe she just doesn't, it's a generation thing, and she's going to always come at you about not doing it her way, and it's such a trigger to you, and it gets you kind of off balance and off your game, and you've spoken to her about that, and she can't change her behavior. Even though she loves you, maybe she worries a lot, maybe she just isn't as connected with how you're showing up in the world. But I want you to look, instead of blaming her, because I know that, when we talk about trauma triangles and things, one of the roles that we can slide into is blaming other people and becoming a victim. So when you recognize this, like, I can't get out of it and I feel very much like a victim, instead of really blaming that other person, I want you to look at that other person and kind of think about their history or their situation. Think about what might be going on in their world that has shaped this behavior over time. So you're going to create a little bit of understanding around that person that's triggering you. And then you're going to look at your role during that trigger interaction. So maybe your role is mother-daughter, and you really show, you might be 50 years old and you're still showing up as mother-daughter. So you're allowing that relationship to be one of concern and worry and advice. And so you've really got to look at you showing up as a daughter, recognize the role you're playing in that situation, and then really do a whole role design. So you're going to redesign what role that you have with your mother. You might talk to her about roles. So it's another approach to kind of combat that trigger thing that might keep happening. And say, it might be hard for her to see you as an adult, even at an older age, and start to talk to her a little bit about the roles that you play in other people's lives, and accept the role that she plays for you, but start to change your role a little bit there. So maybe you don't come to her for advice, or you don't share some of the things. Maybe you find a best friend to share with. So sometimes the way we're coming into it and the roles we're playing are just as much a part of the trigger. So I want you to kind of recognize what role you're playing in it, and also has some things built up for you. So if your mom's constantly worrying and telling you not to do things, and you're trying to be brave, and it just feels like, she cares, but it triggers you and it makes you feel bad, I want you to think of how much of that trigger has, you go from 0 to 100. Have you really let go of that emotion around how she is, or are you letting that emotion have power over you? So if you're allowing that emotion to have power over you, it's really hard to change your role, and it's hard to change triggers, because you're almost going into a conversation that you know isn't going to go well. And so there's energy there. You're going to show up with some energy and really maybe accepting that person and having a little forgiveness for that person that they can't show up for you the way that you need. And just allowing it, you've got to, my coach said to me, we can either dive into that deep or you're going to let it go. It's your choice. And so I chose to, like, instead of diving in deep, I wasn't up for that. And I didn't really want to let it go. I wanted to figure it out. We looked at what role I was playing in a situation that wasn't going very well for me, but that I didn't really have choice around the relationship and how that we were engaging. And I couldn't make the needed change there. So instead, the only thing I had control over, as Colleen talks about control, is me. And I needed to change my role and change my attitude a little bit, because I was being a little passive aggressive stepping into that. So I hope this is helpful. Maybe this will be the last week for triggers. Maybe it'll keep rolling in as I get feedback from people and they're more curious about diving a little bit deeper into triggers. I'm going to keep going with it. If you have another topic or something that you're struggling with that you want to explore, feel free to personal message me and we'll work on it in our positive psychology group. I hope everyone has a great weekend.